you guys? My name is Aubrey and this is my channel, and today I want to talk about salaries. Now, a few weeks ago, I published a video talking about how California had a major problem with people leaving, and I cited a number of different reasons as to why this was the case, including housing costs, cost of living, traffic, as well as a problem with homelessness. And in the following weeks, I created a second video comparing California to some of the alternative no-income tax states. Now, if you haven't checked out these videos, you should definitely check them out. I will include a link in the description down below. Now, in my last two videos, kind of the number one argument that I heard in favor of California was the fact that yes, California had a higher income tax, they had a homelessness problem, the cost of living was high, but that the potential to earn money was higher and more significant in California compared to other states. And I think it's a really valid question. Do you actually have the availability to make more money in California in comparison to some of the no income tax state alternatives? And as of right now, I don't actually know the answer to that question. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be comparing California to not only the United States average as a whole, but to also the states of Texas, Nevada, Florida, Washington, and Tennessee. We're not going to do all of the no income tax states for the sake of clarity and minimizing confusion as much as possible. I'm going to just leave it to these five. And what I'm going to do is I'm not only going to compare the median household income in these states and in the United States as a whole, but I'm also going to compare 5 different career paths as well. And so with that, let's dig into our first metric, which is the median household income. Now, the median household income in the United States, so the country average, is $56,000 per year. Now, in the state of California, in comparison, is $64,500 per year. Once you adjust that for cost of living, you get to a real household income of $56,878. Next, let's go to my home state of Texas. So Texas has a median household income of $55,653, but once you adjust that for the cost of living, you have a real income of $57,493. Next, let's talk about Nevada, which has a median household income of $54,996. Once you adjust that for the cost of living, you get to a real income of $53,501. Next is Florida. The median household income in Florida is $49,426. Once you take into account the cost of living, you come to a real income of $49,674. Next is Washington, which has a median household income of $64,129. Once you take into account the cost of living, you get to a real income of $61,192. And lastly, let's go to Tennessee. Tennessee's median household income is $47,275. Once you take into account the cost of living, you come to a real income of $52,586. So that concludes the median household income for these states as well as the United States as a whole. Next, let's jump into our different career paths that you could explore if you were wanting to move to any one of these states. So the careers that I want to talk about today are lawyer, teacher, cashier, mechanical engineer, and I feel like this kind of covers a broad spectrum of different career paths. So we're going to be comparing the average salaries for these roles in these different states. So let's first talk about lawyers. So the average US salary for a lawyer is $120,000 per year. The average salary of a lawyer in California comes out to $140,740 per year. Once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to an average of $124,659. Next, let's move on to Texas. The average salary for a lawyer in Texas is $115,470. And once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to a adjusted income of $119,658. Next is Nevada, which is still in that six-figure mark. The average salary for a lawyer in Nevada is $106,150. Once the cost of living is adjusted, that brings us to an adjusted income of $108,096. Next is Florida, which thus far with the median household income has been a disappointingly low earning state. The average lawyer salary comes out to $98,660. Once you take the cost of living into account, that comes out to an adjusted income of $99,858. So below that six-figure mark and quite a bit lower than the national average. Next is Washington, which comes actually right below Nevada, which has a average lawyer salary of $103,170. Once you take the cost of living of that state into account, you come out to an adjusted income of $99,971, so below that six-figure mark as well. And lastly is Tennessee. The average lawyer earns $93,630 in Tennessee, and once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to an average of $103,230. So the low cost of living in Tennessee really makes up for it in this case. So in the case of lawyers, you do have the potential to make quite a lot more money in California, even with cost of living taken into account compared to some of these other states. Texas is a close second. Next is teachers. Now, before we begin about teachers, I would like to go on record stating that teachers are incredibly underpaid. My sister is a third grade teacher, and seeing the effort she puts into her classroom versus how much she gets paid is quite honestly a bit disgusting and disappointing that we don't treat our teachers better with a higher paid salary, but that's for a different video. With that being said, the average United States teacher salary comes out to $60,000 per year. If we compare that to California, the average salary in California for a teacher is $62,400 per year. Once we take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $55,270. Next is Texas. The average Texas teacher salary is $59,460 per year. Once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $61,617. Nevada pays their teachers on average $49,810. Once you take into account the cost of living, that's $50,723, so quite below the national average. Florida pays their teachers surprisingly well with an average salary of $72,030, and once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $72,905, so quite a bit above the national average. Washington pays their teachers $53,780 per year. Once you count the cost of living, that comes out to $52,112 per year. And Tennessee has a disappointingly low salary for their teachers at $46,371 per year, but whenever you take into account the cost of living, it raises it just a bit to $51,125 per year. Next, let's talk about cashiers, which earn on average in the United States about $11.75, which comes out to $24,000 per year. So first, let's talk about California. California pays their cashiers an average salary of $20,600 per year. Once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $18,246 per year. For Texas, they pay their cashiers an average of $18,700 per year. Once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $19,378. Nevada pays their cashiers $19,990 per year. Once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $20,356 per year. In the state of Florida, the average cashier salary is $18,620. Once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $18,846. Washington pays their cashiers $23,000 per year, and once you take into account cost of living, it comes out to $22,287 per year. Lastly is Tennessee, and they pay their cashiers $18,380 per year. Once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $20,265 per year. So in the case of all of these states, they're all below the national average, and they kind of hover around that same number between $18,000 and $20,000 per year. Next is mechanical engineers. So the average mechanical engineer in the United States makes $94,000 per year. When we compare that to California, California pays their mechanical engineers $93,840 per year on average. Once you take into account the cost of living, that comes down quite significantly to $83,118 per year. Next, let's go to Texas. They pay their mechanical engineers on average $89,920. Once we take into account the cost of living, we're bumped up to $93,181. Next is Nevada. Now they pay their mechanical engineers on average $73,380 per year. And once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $74,725. That's actually quite a bit lower than the national average. I feel like that's quite low. Next is Florida, another low one. They pay their mechanical engineers an average of $74,740 per year. And once you take into account the cost of living, it comes out to $75,648. In Washington, the average salary is $88,780. Once you take into account the cost of living, it's $86,027. And lastly is Tennessee. Now, Tennessee pays their mechanical engineers on average $81,450 per year. Once you take into account the cost of living, that comes out to $89,800 $102. So that was a lot of numbers. Looking back, I don't know if I should have included that many, but I wanted to get a really good idea of what all of these numbers meant and how big of a range there was depending on where you're located and what you do for a living. I think that between the 3 videos that I've done on this topic, the first one just criticizing California, the second one comparing California to different states, and now this one comparing the salaries of California to the United States as well as different states as a whole, I think that what we've really come out to is that whether or not California is for you really depends on a variety of factors. One thing I would like to note is that these adjusted income numbers that I gave you in this video do not include income tax, which is a big factor that needs to be taken into account, but it does take into account the cost of living. I think that really though what we've gathered from this video is that what you do will heavily dictate whether or not where you live makes sense. If you're a cashier, probably California is not the best place for you to live. But if you're somebody like a mechanical engineer, if you're a teacher, if you're a surgeon, for example, you could make California work and you can make it work really comfortably. Now, the question that we asked in this video is, does California actually have higher earning potential compared to different states? And I think that the answer to that question, given this video, is no, it doesn't. That you do have the potential to make more in other states, especially once you take into account the cost of living. Now, of course, there are fields that I didn't even discuss in this video that, of course, need to be taken into account. But based off of these average numbers that we've discussed, I don't think that California inherently has a better earning potential compared to other states. But I don't think it's as bad as I thought it was going to be either. I think that at the end of the day, if being in a place that has good weather all the time, if being close to the beach, if being in the environment of a place like California is important to you, then yeah, it could be an excellent choice. Whereas if you're somebody who's more concentrated on the numbers and doesn't really care exactly where they live, then you would probably be better off going to places like Tennessee, Texas, or Washington. All in all though, I'm pretty surprised with these numbers. I thought that California, especially adjusted cost of living income, was going to be significantly lower than it was, and it was all in all, I think, more even than I expected that it would be. But with that being said, you guys, I would love to hear your thoughts on this video, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. I'll see you guys in the next video.